Hey there, hi there, what do you know there? It's the One Up Yours podcast for January 25th, 2008. I'm Garnet Lee, and I have to tell you, after announcing the new official third chair last week, unfortunately, you know, this is like one of the worst things you'll hear. It's like family emergency, and so our thoughts, hearts, and all that go out for Brian. And Brian, if you're listening, we're thinking about you. Don't worry about it. We got everything nailed down here. In his stead, we've brought in a couple of heavy hitters. First of all, Dan Hsu, editorial director for the entire Ziff Davis game group, is here to my left.
Hey, how's it going?
And because he got to go check out Grand Theft Auto 4, Mr. Matt Leone, the previews editor for OneUp.com.
Hello.
And of course, as always, executive editor of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Mr. Shane Bettenhausen.
You love job titles.
In the house.
Hello there.
Oh, listen to him. He's all officious today. Hello there. Anyway, we have an excellent show coming up for you today. We're going to do the normal thing in the first segment, what you've been playing. And in the second segment, it's the first time for 2008. That's right. The coin is back. 4-minute warning coming up for that news segment. So I told you, Andrew, I actually rearranged some of the news. We've got tons of news. There's tons of juicy stuff for us to go off on because there's crazy people saying crazy things. And once again, we're back out there in...
Don't go calling him crazy.
What? Who?
Who's he calling crazy?
I know who you're calling crazy. We'll get to that.
There's a lot of...
All right. There's a lot of mainstream meets niche video game news to dig into. How about that? Is that good?
All right.
You good with that? All right. So I've only been playing one game. I'm going to hold it for at least number 2. Who's going to kick this off with? Let's let Matt go because everyone's already like Grand Theft Auto. Let's go right into it.
It's not really what you've been playing, but what we've been seeing, I guess.
Well, right.
But
You were near a controller while
I was watching people play it. It was ridiculous.
It wasn't video. You saw the real thing.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. It's it's more Grand Theft Auto. There's not like one big thing when you think of that game that it's like this is what makes it a sequel. It's just every little thing is improved, and it's a much bigger game, and it's much more ambitious. And
how much did you pick up about the main character this time? Because that's like the first question I think a lot of people have.
Yeah, not much. We know it's Niko Bellic. We know he looks kind of weird and he's old. He's different for GTA, but we don't really know what he's
old.
Doing. Yeah.
He's in his 30s, right?
Wait, he's not old.
Yeah, he is. He's like the oldest GTA character there's been.
He's not old.
What are you talking about?
Garnet, your perspective
is... He is not old.
Your perspective
he's a happening young man about town. He is.
If he's 30, he's younger than I am, too.
He's at the front of the Liberty City
He's got to
scene.
be older than 30. I don't know what his official age is, but he looks older than 30.
So,
all right.
Wait, so now... Does it feel bigger, like compared to San Andreas, which was huge in terms of real estate?
Well, it's kind of hard to say when you're watching a guided tour because you see like them jump from area to area, and you see them like get in a cab, and then they're in a new area. So we're not exactly looking at the entire city the whole time. But it definitely feels ambitious. Like you can look across the water and like see the rest of the city in the background and everything like that. So it definitely feels big.
But that's all modeled.
But I don't know how much bigger it feels like just moment to moment. It's hard to say.
Okay, well let's set the groundwork. Give us like the quick overview of what you saw on that guided tour. Where did it start? What did you see?
We saw a bunch of missions. So like there was one mission where you get drunk, and then what they call the euphoria, the natural motion. Those are the technology words that don't really matter, but it's the stuff where you have to like balance your character. So it's the Indiana Jones technology that they were showing off, where the game automatically balances your character instead of doing animation by hand that developers do. So it's kind of like physics based. And so they do that when you're drunk and you're kind of like huddling over, and you have to keep yourself standing up, and you have to pick up another guy and get him into your car, and then you start driving the car, and the lights start getting all blurry and flashy, and it's all crazy. And it's probably just like one mission or a couple little segments here and there that are like that, but it was pretty cool.
So you're driving drunk?
Oh yeah.
Fox News is going to love.
Oh, they're gonna adore this. I'm sure there'll be some full on sex in the back seat at the same time.
That's what happens when you drink.
I know. You lose all sense of any propriety. All right. So there's like a natural. So for people who don't know the buzzword, natural motion, explain that a little better.
I don't know it perfectly, but it's basically this concept of, you have a character, and then as they're moving through the environment, the animation is being done by like automatically. It's not being drawn. Every frame isn't being drawn by the animators. The characters are kind of like they'll stumble into something, and then, or if they
So
walk
there's-
into something, they'll automatically go over it and things like
Okay,
that.
so now I follow you. That's what you were talking about, like the relationship to the Indiana Jones game, where
Yeah, it's
where
the same
where they're
technology.
animating where the machine is animating the character with what's it called, kinematics, right? And it's not just a bunch of pre-drawn, pre-rendered animations that you pop into.
Kind of like ragdoll
That's cool.
physics, right?
Yeah, essentially like that, but for balance, I guess. you know.
That's a big step for GTA. You think about how programmed their animations were for their characters.
Well,
it's
it's not
cool.
for everything. It's just for little things here and there. So,
Oh, so it's not throughout the whole game. It's just in these
as far as I
specific.
know, yeah,
In the drunk driving missions.
exactly.
Of course, where it's really important.
Did you get to see gunplay? Because that's one of the question marks we've had is we've heard it's more like Gears of War or Uncharted now. There's a lot of cover. Is that how it is?
I haven't seen much on the cover. I mean, well, we saw the cover last time they showed the game. They didn't show that much this time because it was more outdoor stuff. But the gunplay looks pretty good. Like as far as I can tell, the aiming system seems solid. I mean, we'll have to try it ourselves to really know. But I mean, it definitely seems like a step forward.
Which, granted, is not a huge thing, right?
I think it is a huge thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not a huge step. I mean, it is a huge thing for the game, but it wouldn't take a huge step to improve on their prior gunplay. Because their gunplay, although a lot of
No,
people were into
but-
it, it was a pain.
I'd be happy if they just ripped off like Saints Row or something like that.
Yeah,
Just
well.
take any game that basically worked in terms of gunplay, just
Blasphemy.
implement that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue with this game. I mean,
I wish they ripped off the true crime gun system.
No, well, you know what? If they did, it'd be much better than any
know
old
it.
GTA.
Yeah, like,
Amazingly,
the bar is so low for what people expect
Right.
from
That's what
gunplay.
that's what I was trying to say.
GTA.
That's what I was totally trying to say.
my bigger concern is actually the melee combat because
Really?
they tell us it's going to be very parry based. So you're going to kind of have to wait for enemies to come at you before you can really do what you're going to do. But then like the actual stuff that we were watching didn't seem as cool as the gunplay did. It seemed a little soft, I guess.
Did it have a lot of like pick up the stuff in the environment and use it as like an impromptu weapon, like grab a trash can and lay the smack down or anything like that?
Maybe we didn't see too much of that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, so you did the drunk driving thing. Where else did you go?
I mean, there were other like standard missions and things, but nothing terribly memorable. I mean, that was definitely the highlight.
Wow. That's actually kind of that alone is almost a disappointment to me a little bit that nothing. I mean, what else stood out?
Well, it's the kind of game where they'll show you lots of little things, but like you don't want to talk about every little thing because they're all so minor, but there's so many of them.
Oh, trust me, people listening right now are like, no, tell me every little thing.
Like the appeal of GTA, it's like the sum of the parts. It's
Right,
not, you
exactly.
Look at any individual slice of GTA, you're like, oh, what's so great about that game?
Right.
My question is, when we saw this game 6 months ago, the frame rate was
Yep.
not so smooth,
Yep.
but the graphics were so much more ambitious and impressive than you expected for this franchise that I think people will be willing to balance that. Like you're not expecting 60 frames a second out of GTA.
Frame rate still needs work for sure. Like it's not where you want it to be yet. It definitely especially when you're driving pretty fast, you feel it more, and when you start getting like bigger crowds and everything, it still definitely.
I mean, do you
needs
think
work.
they went too far with it with like the texture work? It's too detailed. They should have scaled that back to
think
make
it's
it
too early to
run
say.
better. Well, not really. It's almost
got,
done.
like-
They're saying it's almost done.
Yeah, but 3 months for frame rate is huge.
yeah, that's
true.
something
That's
they tie up at the end a lot.
Yeah, it's the very last thing they did.
There's a great subplot to that, though, because Midnight Club is using the same engine. So you would think that that's got to be a big area of focus
well, I mean,
for them.
Midnight Club was definitely running better when I saw it, but if you look at the detail in Liberty City, it's pretty insane. Like,
Yeah.
with parts icing, you're walking around in Brooklyn, there's roads over you, people walking on the streets. I mean, it's a ton of detail. So, we'll see.
All right. That's cool. So are you more or less excited after seeing it? How about that?
More. Like this is probably third or fourth time I'd seen it, and
Right.
and I was kind of just like getting to the point where it's like, okay, just finally let me play it. I'm kind of tired of seeing it, but I got more excited seeing the latest build.
Matt's just hard to read. You can't tell.
He is.
But his enthusiasm right now, his enthusiasm is like at a fever pitch. You just can't tell because he's very reserved.
How would you rate it on the Kratos scale?
I'm not gonna rate it now. But
Are
I
you
mean,
joking that Matt only likes God of War?
No, I would not. I would never insinuate that. All right.
I
So
like a few games.
He also likes Splinter Cell, I know.
That's
I
right.
like Splinter
And he
Cell.
definitely enjoys the darkness.
I enjoy the darkness.
you enjoyed anything you've been playing? Have you been playing anything lately you enjoyed?
I've been playing Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword for review, so it's still a little ways off.
Cool.
We can't-
We've talked about it a little bit on this podcast.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, you're on a review too,
I
right?
am,
So I
yeah.
probably shouldn't say what happens later in the game. Or
I've only
anything,
played the first
but-
3 missions.
Okay, yeah, but I'm pretty into like the way that game controls and just kind of the whole feel of it.
As both Brian and I said on this podcast, we're just amazed to be playing an original DS game that kind of feels like a real modern game, not a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah. It's the first time I was telling my roommate last night. It's the first time I've been like playing a portable game where I actually feel like as engaged as I am with a console game. It's pretty exciting. So
Really, noticeably more than any other PSP or DS game you've played.
yeah, because most portable games that are good aren't like heavy action games. Or at least so far. I mean, a few of them on PSP, sure, but not really like this. I don't think.
And definitely on DS, it's a strange experience because you're holding it, in the portrait style, like Brain Age, and you're playing an action game, which you've never done before.
Right.
And you're like scribbling frantically too.
Yeah. It gets really crazy.
Yeah. It feels like you're button mashing with the stylus.
But
basically,
but it
you're
works.
scribbling. Yeah.
But it works, which is even weirder. Like you don't think it's gonna work. You don't feel like you're gonna be in control, but you are.
That's a really cool analogy, actually. The thought of like the scribbling on the screen being the equivalent of button mashing, because I think
it totally is. There's like. So to take it back to God of War, like when you have to escape from an enemy in God of War, you have to like mash on a button.
Right.
Here, in order to escape from certain enemies, you have to like scribble back and forth.
See, this is really cool. To me, this is an example of someone other than Nintendo using one of their cool hardware innovations and doing something new and right with it. It's the thing we've talked about with DS maturing, and the thing we hope that will happen with Wii is the sort of doing something innovative and making it work. And apparently that's the big takeaway from this, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people have been concerned about the difficulty level. I really wouldn't be too worried about that. It gets pretty hard. So, it doesn't get Ninja Gaiden hard, but it definitely gets harder than we thought it might.
It starts out easy.
Yeah,
See, I thought he was going the other way with that. I thought he was going to say that it was too. Yeah, exactly.
It's not as hard as you might expect from this series, but there is a harder option that unlocks after you beat it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's got some challenge.
But would you go back and play it another time just to play it at a harder difficulty?
I am.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I don't know if I'll make it all the way through. We'll see how it goes, but yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that you can unlock in it too. Like you can collect these little wooden pieces that unlock. Like there's a menu of things that you can unlock.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess I could jump in next.
One other thing is I've been playing Knights, and Knights sucks. That's all.
What?
Whoa,
you overrated the new Knights.
I don't think that's going to go with just one comment.
I mean, okay.
This is the new Knights.
This is the new Knights, and I gave
on the Wii.
I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
And it was. I was on the edge of a 6.5 and a 7 for it. I think it has a lot of problems. You can read my review and see them. But as an original Knights fan from 1996, like this does capture.
No, it doesn't.
It does. What do you think?
It has really good. It has in some cases really good level designs, but the speed, it's just too slow. If you play the old Knights, it's so much faster and more responsive than the new game. If you just put them side by side,
what were you playing it with? I mean, just like the speed that Knights travels on screen. Or?
Yeah, just like your movement speed and like how fast you turn and go up and down and like how you get through these levels.
How are you playing it?
I was playing with the nunchuck and the Wiimote. So yeah, technically I know it's better for like your acrobatics, but other than that, it's the same.
Because I was playing with the GameCube controller, and I felt his turning was a little slower, and I could tell that. Like it isn't exactly the same, but when you get into it and get into the flow and learn to play the game correctly and get lots of links, it feels like Knights.
No, it feels like you're struggling with the technology. Like it feels like if the frame rate was a lot better, you would be moving faster and it'd be like a smoother experience. It doesn't feel as elegant.
Did you go back and play this Atom version?
I think a couple months ago.
Really? Because I think your memories of what Knights felt like and what it played like is shrouded in.
And I think you are the same way.
Time. Yeah. I mean, it's not a great game, but I think as a sequel to Knights, the new stuff they added was universally pretty crappy. But as a pure sequel, it sufficed.
You suppose they could put like a blast processor on an SD card and you could just pop that baby in there?
My bigger problem with Knights is how awful the presentation of the cutscenes and the voice acting and just how much it's for 5-year-olds.
And the save system and the British girl voice that Knights has.
Like anybody who walks in when you're playing this game, you'll be embarrassed for
the
rest of your life.
See, that's what got me turned off. Remember when we were first talking about this, and I was excited about the idea of Knights, and then you were telling me that, and I was saying, no, it can't be. Yeah, then I saw people playing. I was like, actually, I don't know if I could play that without feeling like emasculated.
It's like I was thinking about Kane and Lynch and Assassin's Creed. These games are selling well because they're kind of cool. Like you can buy into the whole story of them.
And I was saying that's why Zack and Wiki won't do well no matter what the word of mouth is, because there's just a point where I could talk to my 30-year-old friends and say it's an awesome game, but they're going to look at that box and like, no way, I'm not buying this thing.
But I feel that Knights 2, they waited too long, and if that game had come out in 1999, people wouldn't be so harsh to it. You can't go home again. Like Knights, it just doesn't hold up.
So what you're saying is a current Wii game would do all right in 1999?
I mean, like the concept and the gameplay and the level design, it feels like a game from 1999. It really does.
It does have a lot of those old design decisions that you think most people are better than now, like making you replay stuff after you die and things like that.
Right. So
isn't that part of the appeal? I mean, I think that
no.
kind of.
If you want to go back and play them, go back and play them. Don't force me to play 3 levels to get back to where I just was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
That's tragic.
No argument. So I picked up after we talked about it last week on the show. I picked up Yakuza from the EGM library
because Christian and I both told you would love it.
Oh my God, you guys, you were so right. You obviously know my gaming taste because I could not put it down. Saturday night, I went to bed at 4:30 in the morning because I could not stop playing the game. It is so.
So what do you like about it?
Well, you know what I love about games, and it gets it all right. It's place and characters and the whole interweaving of that with story. I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, first of all, I'll go right up front and say, yes, the fighting system is fairly broken. But
it gets better as you progress, and there are moves you can get at the beginning of the game that make it really easy.
Well, yeah, and you find that there are maybe 4 or 5 types of enemies, despite them somewhat looking different. Then they go through the same sorts of attack routines, and once you learn how to beat them, you can just pretty much methodically beat them. My problem is that in 3D space, not having a real lock-on button winds up putting you in these incredibly awkward positions where you're trying to figure out how to get turned back around to look at the guy.
It's a little unwieldy.
Which is a pain, because the actual fighting part, where you feel like a badass, is really cool. Like one of the best decisions in that game is that even though it's a modern gangster game, guns are almost completely marginalized, which makes it.
Well, I mean, the brawler aspect of it is able to
so
breathe.
Cool.
And, because it's really like a role-playing game meets a brawler, meets a little bit of Shenmue. But mainly it's a role-playing game and brawler.
Yeah, it's exactly. I actually think of it as an adventure role-playing game where the combat part is a brawler.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because you actually, it's almost like Final Fantasy, where when you get into combat, it stops and takes you into the combat screen. I mean, it feels like that.
It's an RPG.
It's just the entire. I mean, like Milky talks about it. The representation of Kabukicho is spot on. Like absolutely. Even the background noise is fairly repetitive, but what there is right on. Like the environments feel right.
If you've never been to Tokyo, I say like that game does give you a fairly good simulation of what it's like to be in that one part of Tokyo.
Yeah, and like when you walk into a bar and it has just the right color lighting, just the right appointments. The bar looks exactly as it should. There's that that very Tokyo modernized jazz music playing in the background, and you go up to the counter and I love that they have actual branded alcohol. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say that sounds so trite, but it's so cool to be able to go in and I'll take a Macallan. That would be good. Yes, I'll definitely.
How do you feel about
Macallan.
the voice acting? Because they spent a lot of money to get these big name celebrities and
Eliza Dushku, Michael Madsen.
Really, you didn't like it? I think several of the characters
some of them are really good.
Nails.
Some of them are very good.
Are absolutely nails. Like I like Kage a lot. Definitely liked him a lot. I like the. What's the name of the?
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway, I think several.
But so the rumor is that Yakuza 2 for PS2 coming out this fall will only be subtitled, not dubbed. But I'm okay with that because it's such a Japanese game.
Yeah.
I think it actually play to the subject matter.
I'll say this. I would by far prefer that they go that route than not spend the same amount of money on voice talent and use if they did it a tier down, that would kill it. I'd rather have high quality, because I'm assuming that it does well in Japan.
The Japanese voice acting is excellent.
Okay, so with that being the case, just keep it in Japanese voice, subtitle it, and away you go. That would be perfect.
But the problem is whether American audiences like that, because there's so many places in America where people walk into like a movie theater, find out it's this critically acclaimed movie, it's supposed to be great, find out it's subtitled, they're like, screw this.
I had people walk out of Sweeney Todd because it was a musical.
Oh my God!
But the thing with Yakuza, they spent a lot of money and it's a good game, but it didn't sell, it didn't connect. So they've already
in the U.S. It's all huge in Japan.
Well, yeah. So they've tested the waters, and here Yakuza 2, they already know they're getting kind of an audience who wants to see something Japanese, and I think it would be okay to leave it.
They would do it. I think if they did it, they'd be doing it for their fans, and knowing that they're doing it for their fans, they wouldn't worry about getting the Michael Madsens and the Eliza Dushkus and that kind of.
But with the PS3 game, the one set in feudal Japan, I think they should actually dub that into English because.
See, now I have an interesting take on that, which is that I don't know that I want a Yakuza 3 in feudal Japan either.
Well, you're getting it.
Well, you know what? I understand that where we had that argument now much better, because what they've done captures the modern environment and world. It's so captivatingly that I don't. I don't need it to
maybe
be broken
they'll
off
rename
like
it.
that.
I mean, they backed themselves into a corner.
I'd be
already,
okay with that.
So.
Well, in Japan, it's Yakuza Kenzan. It's like a play on words, and I think the whole idea behind that game is they made that one as a stopgap because to do Tokyo on PS3, or next gen, where they put it, it's a ton of work, a lot of graphic assets. Whereas like feudal Japan, there's no neon skyscrapers, there's a tree, so it's kind of easier to make a game.
So I don't think trees are easy to make.
You seen those flowers?
The flowers really good.
They're pretty.
And a question we're going to actually get to sort of in 4-Minute Warning is about story, and I think that this is a case where the stories work together really well, and it's because they draw you into the characters right off the bat, and that's so important.
Well, I'm glad you found this game because a lot of people slept on it. Maybe people will go out and find it. Hopefully, is it cheap now? I don't even know.
I don't know whether it's cheap or not. It was, obviously I had the luxury of having the library to go get it from, but I would strongly recommend that you go out, especially if you have if you have PS2 or a backwards compatible PS3, pick this game up and play it. It's apparently not very long. I'm going through it slowly because I'm doing like a lot of side stuff. I'm going to the casinos and gambling. I'm like playing around with the hostess bar thing, which is
in number 2. You can be a host. You can go work at a host club and have hostesses come date you.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
That's a part 2.
Yeah. I mean, those are kind of interesting side distractions. I've kind of lost a little momentum on them because the story is picking up enough that I actually just want to find out what happens next.
Right.
So, and the gangsters are. Go get it. Just go play the game.
Hey, when you're done, will you leave it out so I remember to play it?
I will. Actually, Andrew already claimed it next because he heard that.
You can borrow my copy, shoot.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's amazing.
But it's the kind of thing, like, if you don't put it on my desk and remind me, I'll forget.
I had it.
So many other games to play.
I had it on my desk. I remember when Sega sent it out for a review. I remember looking at it. I remember thinking, I really want to play this game, and I just... Timing, late PS2 history, we were getting into gearing up for next gen. I mean, I think that probably hurt it as well.
Yeah, it came out around the time of like Gears of War or something.
Yeah, what do you get? That's definitely.
I mean, that's what screws the second one is that people are like, "There's a PS3 game. Why should I be buying the second one on PS2 now?"
Right.
Well, we'll start a grassroots effort here.
Right now, right there. So, it's Shu?
So I'm playing 4 things. I think I'm rotating right now. I'm playing Advance Wars: Days of Ruin.
Have you finished the single player yet?
Well, I did. So the thing is, when Nintendo gives us cartridges to review, they have them in these lock boxes, and then you can't access them, and then you have to give them back.
What's even worse though is that it's a DS Fat, which is the worst.
A what? Oh yeah,
it's
the
old
DS.
DS. Yeah, it's an old DS. They don't give you DS lights.
And then with the lockbox stuff on it, it makes it huge and unwieldy. But so I beat it, the single player game for review. And then I wrote the review, and then now I have the retail version. I'm actually borrowing 1UP's copy, and I'm playing through again. And then so I'm playing a little bit of that.
Is there a harder difficulty you can challenge, or no?
No, that's what it's like. It's a lot more feature light than the old games. It's like like all the weird extra modes aren't there. The DS battles aren't there. The experience points and leveling up for your COs aren't there. But it is a more tactical game this time around. It's actually more strategic. So it's like has pros and cons, and it has online play, which I think is the best feature for that game because it's really easy. Like when I was playing online against Ryan Scott at GFW Magazine, and I was playing Call of Duty 4, and then a single player, I'd pause it because when you hear the music change on your DS, you know it's your turn. So I'd pause it, go play on my DS, take my turn.
Dude, that'd be perfect for Coldcept as well.
Yeah, it's like,
no, really.
Because
I believe you.
When it's not your turn, you can do other things.
You can just set it down.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm playing that, and then against our assistant art director, Mike Cruz, he wanted to play, but he didn't get the new game yet. He's not caught up to speed yet. So actually this week we've been playing the last Advance Wars game, Dual Strike.
Man, you're like Advance Wars junkie.
Yeah, it's like 2 different Dual Strikes at the same time. So we're playing multiplayer local network during work. Like no one's really noticing, but we're like doing a little work on a computer, and then I hear the music change. I'll go to my DS, take my turn, and then so we played a little bit of that.
Okay, if you're playing both of them at the same time, then which one do you like better?
I like things about Dual Strike better. I like things about Days of Ruin better. Like I wish I could combine features from both. Like I like the units in Days of Ruin better, and I like the tactical nature, the more hardcore tactical nature of Days of Ruin better. But there are all these features and all these modes in the old game that I like better. I like leveling up my commanding officers, for example.
What's the explanation behind why we lost features in a new, ostensibly newer game?
Yeah, it's weird because if you look at I played all the Advance Wars, and Dual Strike, the first DS game, feels like the biggest step in terms of we're just going to throw a lot more at you in terms of features features. But they said the attitude, when we interviewed Nintendo on this, and you could see this on One Up Show, they said they just kind of wanted to wipe the slate clean, start over, and be really lean and say, what's the core of what we're getting at? What do we want to do? The game's about this kind of post-apocalyptic, desolate world, and they're like, let's just concentrate on that and not try to fill the game with a lot of fluff.
I think part of it also was they said that some of that other stuff they didn't feel like fit into the kind of new, like more mature, kind of more realistic Battlefield theme.
And I think
I don't know how true that is.
That theme shift was smart because most of the people who I know who play Advance Wars are adults, and I bet a larger percentage are adults who play that versus some Nintendo properties. So if you're going to age up a Nintendo franchise, this is one to do.
It's a more adult theme, but then the other problem is for every good thing, there's a bad thing. Like, I like the theme better; it's much more mature, but they talk a lot in this game. It's like it drives you crazy. And I was talking to Mike again, the other Advance Wars player, about this, and then he's like, "Do they talk this much?" I'm like, "Yeah, it drives you crazy." But the thing is, the first time playing through, you don't want to miss anything, right? You don't want to just accidentally skip. You can hit the start button, skip all the dialogue, go straight to the action, but you're always afraid you're going to miss something kind of cool. So then you read it. But so for my second time through, every time as soon as someone starts talking, I'm like, skip.
Shut up!
They talk a lot, and it drives you crazy. And then I'm playing, just because I'm late on this, I'm playing Mass Effect, and it's taking me way too long. I think I played for 7-8 hours, and I haven't.
You're such a completist, Shu. You're the guy who got every single monster summon in Final Fantasy V.
Yeah.
There is no too long to playing Mass Effect. I would say that it's my perception that people who play it long have more enjoyment and get more out of it because that was the approach they took to it.
I don't know if I'm enjoying it because some of these side quests are dumb. I think I'm just obsessed.
But you're doing it
I just have this sickness that I have to fulfill. Like I'm like, if there's a side quest, I gotta complete it.
Are you having a good time?
No, it's a cool game. It's polished. But well, here's the thing. Like, have you played Mass Effect?
Yeah. No, I finished it.
So I'm about 7-8 hours in. I haven't left the Citadel yet. The very first time, like. I haven't left
That's
yet.
not surprising.
Yeah.
I actually sort of did the same thing.
Okay.
And if you want to do all the side quests, that's sort of the pace you have to take, which ultimately was one of the failings to me of the game, was that I thought that the balance between side questing and main quest was out of whack. The main quest is really interesting, and the story is solid. The conclusion is one of the best endings to a game, almost ever. So why is it out of balance where I have to do so many side quests that just feel forced, and
some of them
feel
really
like Lego
forced.
pieces almost.
But they're all optional.
Exactly. So how much more content could I have had down the main storyline if it had been instead of a 50-50 balance, a 30-70 balance, which I think would have been a much stronger balance for this game. Much stronger.
Because some of those are just silly. It's like some of the ones where talk to one guy and then he sends you to talk to another guy and you just run back to talk to the first guy. You do it 3 or 4 times, and it's like you don't feel like you're doing anything good. And then to compound the problem is I have to read every single codex entry because the universe and the
dear
fiction,
God, you're setting yourself up for a lot of reading.
I know it's going to take
a lot of
this
reading.
is going to end up being a 300-hour game for me, I feel. But the thing is, I love reading those because it's so rich and it's so detailed. You're like all these different alien races and how they interacted with each other and the history. I'm like, man, this someone should make a movie out of this. I don't know if they have any plans for books.
Garnet, you read the prequel.
Yeah, I read the
There's
prequel.
already a book.
There is a book. Okay.
If you read the prequel, you'll get much more out of it. They actually Drew, and I'm not going to mispronounce his name, but Drew, the guy who actually wrote all the story for it, is writing another book to go between this game and the second game. So they're definitely thinking. I mean, they have so much backstory they've already thought out of the races, how it all works together. Wait till you see the ending. Wait till you see the ending. It's yeah. The way the whole story comes together towards the end is really. It's classic. It's classic sci-fi space opera stuff. So, people will make fun of it for that who don't like that. But if you like that sort of, grand spacefaring, space sci-fi stuff, you'll dig it.
Well, yeah, if you can invite me back on, like, 2012 or something like that, I should know the ending by then, I hope.
It's going to... I would almost bet that somewhere in about the next 5 to 10 hours, you're going to say, "Screw it! I want to find out what happens," and just go down the main path.
I can't play that way. I got to do everything. And then the last thing, this is also for my obsessive nature, is I played through Call of Duty 4 on Veteran. I have 980 out of the 1,000 achievement points. I've beaten the main game. I think it's awesome. I want to kill whoever put a 1 minute time limit on the post-credit.
Oh my God, that thing's it's insane.
Level.
It's insane.
But because I want to get the achievement, I don't want to just beat it, but I want to get the achievement. So I have to play that last airplane level on veteran, the hardest difficulty. You got to do it in a minute. And basically, you don't even have time to aim your gun. You just have to just run and rush and shoot.
She was talking about this at lunch, and he's played this 1 minute level over 2 hours.
No. That's per session. I've done that 5 or 6 times.
So you
now.
played this for like 10 hours.
I probably put 8 hours into this, and I cannot beat it. And I'm like, but I got to get the last 20 points.
Here's the deal. Go to My Cheats, pull the FAQ, and there's basically a set order of which guns you have to pick up in which orders and what marks you have to hit in order to get through it. Because there's like almost
it's
almost like a puzzle.
Yeah, it's
almost like a puzzle. So yeah, basically you're right. You don't have time to reload. You absolutely cannot reload. You're going to have to know which guys to hit with which guns and which guns to pick up on the way through.
So wait, you've played this 10 hours without going to any FAQ yet?
I don't think it's 10 hours. I think it's probably more realistically like 6 hours, like 4 or 5 1.5 hour sessions.
So 6 hours of your time, that's worth 20 points, 20 achievement points.
I have a sickness.
Yes,
seek help.
But the thing that's like the bad thing about achievements. It's like I don't feel like I've completed it. I'm so close. Like BioShock, the second time I played through, I got all 1,000 points, and you feel very fulfilled at that point. Like I did
just played it on PS3.
Then I won't know any better.
And this is like a conversation we'll have next week because I haven't had a chance to dig into it yet. But we'll definitely be talking about some Burnout. And I fully thought that I would be getting Burnout on PS3, and everybody around this damn office picks it up on 360 because they want the achievements.
Yeah.
I don't care about achievement points anymore. I really don't.
I wish I did.
You can play with me on PS3.
But everyone's playing on 360. Karen's playing on 3. First of all, it starts with Karen.
If everybody jumps off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff
when it's an online game
for 20 achievement points? Jumped off cliff, achievement unlocked.
Dude, Karen is one of the best Burnout players I've ever seen, and she's playing it on there. Nick is rival to her. He's gonna play it on there. It's like once the chips start falling, it's just an avalanche.
Be your own person, Garnet. That's all I can say.
And play by myself with people I don't know. What have you been playing, Mr. Bettenhausen?
I played a bunch of games for fun this weekend.
Holy
including I have solved Uncharted. It only took me a month and a half.
Yes.
And I solved it. And I only had like 22 of the 60 treasures, and I didn't care. I didn't be like, I gotta go get the rest of those treasures.
You know what? So when I played Resistance, they have their achievements too. I haven't played Uncharted yet, but when I played Resistance, I'm like, oh no, they have achievements. But it's kind of easier to ignore when there's not some big overarching system that like
when there's not a scoreboard.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of easier when it's just
shame,
for that
your
game.
Private shame. So yeah, I really like Uncharted. I think all along I've said I really liked it. I'd probably give it an 8.5, which is what all of our reviewers gave it in EGM. However, I hate the end of the game. Like it is terrible. I remember you talked about this. Now that I've played it, it's such a.
You're like, what the hell is that?
I mean, not only is there really no last boss? I mean, there's a last encounter, but it's like a quick time event. And there's no denouement, there's no conclusion. Like, if you beat it on the really hard difficulty, is there an ending? Like, I don't know. I
beat it on the hard, but not the hardest.
Yeah.
And
nothing different. I mean, it's an absolute must-play, amazing graphics.
Absolutely.
And I like the twist, like the gameplay twist that happens near the end, the new kinds of enemies you're fighting. You can go to some beautiful new environments. But yeah, the very, very climax of that game sucks balls. Totally bad.
And I think that part of what draws that out is throughout the game, the narrative works and you're drawn into it and you're excited and into the world, and they're able to do things like, spoiler alert, they're able to do things like put a submarine high up a river and at the base of a waterfall, and you're like, how on earth would this? But you finally, you're like, oh, you know what? Okay.
Then, near the end, there's like a Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque twist, and you think, well,
it works.
This could go a really cool way, and then it doesn't.
And then at the end, you're like,
well, and then. I mean, I want to ask Amy Hennig, the game director, about this, but she makes this unique female character who's not a stock damsel in distress, and then makes her a damsel in distress, and
that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Takes away her entire, autonomy and creativity. That's
true.
It's a bad ending.
That is another thing that I didn't realize I didn't like, but I don't like that either.
But it's a great game, and the graphics are unparalleled.
Yeah, I can't wait for more of them. I honestly cannot wait for more of that character and universe.
Yeah. Also, I continue to be completely obsessed with Patapon. I know I'm going to talk about Patapon every week until everybody pre-orders it because it's phenomenal.
You know what I found out at lunch today? Shane stole my copy. Like, I got sent one.
Somebody stole my copy too.
No wonder I can't find
one. We went around
one.
stealing. We stole yours too. We went around stealing everybody's copies. Because what happened is
I had no idea I got it in the mail, and Shane accidentally revealed that he took it.
Well, around Christmas, SCA, they sent out a little Christmas card, and in the Christmas card was a disc of Potapone, a fully in English, early, like 3 months early build of Potapone. And when we realized that, we were like, well, okay, we need to review this game. So I went and harvested review copies for the reviewers, as we should do.
That was very nice of you.
But then it turned out that other people had got them as well, because they sent, like, I think there were like 6 or 7 here at the office.
Mine was stolen by Ryan O'Donnell, who was not reviewing it.
Yeah.
Well, he came by and asked me, he's like, how many do you have? I was like, I don't know. You should look around. I bet people got some.
Shane was all of a sudden empowered. He felt popular. Everyone was coming to him.
I was handing out Potapone.
Santa Claus at Christmas time handing out these discs, opening other people's mail.
Well, I wanted Ryan to have one because I knew that he would like it because I know him.
Could someone contact the postal fraud department for me?
Anyway, it's awesome.
It is.
See, even Matt agrees. He hates everything.
I have endeavored to track down a copy because I really think I would like it.
I think you would like it.
You might have gotten one in the mail.
Apparently, I did. Shane said he's. So anyway, we'll sort that out.
So after I finished Uncharted, I was like, well, let's go see what's on the PlayStation Store, and I had some funds left in my wallet, and there's a bunch of new iToy PSI stuff. So I downloaded one piece of software entitled Tori Emaki.
I saw that.
And I also got the Mesmerize titles, which are Distort and Trace. And of these, I mean, these are all like $3 little like things. And the last thing I bought like this was that aquarium game. I forget what it's called. It's not even a game. It's kind of disappointing. You just look at fish. This one, yeah, like at least in Endless Ocean you get to pet the fish, and this one you just look at them. But so Tori Emaki,
that's $47 difference.
Exactly. Well, you're right. Endless Ocean's only $40.
Sorry.
Tori Emaki, it's like this interactive piece of Japanese sumi-e watercolor artwork that you look at and you move your hands around and you like send flocks of birds flying through it. I mean, it's pretty, it's soothing, it's boring. The next one, however, the Mesmerize games, they're less of games, but they're actually really cool because there's all these different filters that it applies to the live direct feed of you and sitting in front of your iToy, and as you move your body, it does all these different things, like laser beams like fly out of your hands, and you leave like trails. It's actually pretty cool, and there's a lot of different things. And
dude, how old are you? You're doing this at home by yourself?
It's an interactive art exhibit, Shu. It's very avant-garde. You wouldn't understand.
I think what happened was
he's like a saved film.
I think what happened was Shane took some shrooms or something, and
it would be great on
and spend like 20 hours playing this game in a row.
No, it was more like 20 minutes. But yeah, that one I think it's worth the money. It's just a cool thing to show off what the technology can do. The big surprise of what I played this week on PS3 was Unreal Tournament 3.
Oh my God!
I know. Yeah, Brian Intihar, he was like, I heard a rumor that you were on UT3 this weekend, and I was.
I've seen you play shooters before.
See?
We played Halo before.
Let me complete that sentence. And I was owned.
No.
Really?
So my friend, he's like, let's play some co-op, because you can play through the whole single-player thing co-op.
Yeah.
With random people, as it turns out.
Who knew? The whole single player thing.
Yeah, the whole single player, like, here's a bunch of like missions with a vague story linking them together. Anyway, it's Unreal, which I've been playing for like 10 years, and it plays the same as it always has.
Wait. If you've been playing it for 10 years, you must have played it on a personal computer.
I did. We've talked about this in the past.
Wow.
I played the original Unreal Tournament online. So yeah, we played. I played maybe like 7 missions, and I found the variety to be very hit and miss. Like the ones where you're assaulting a core. Have you played the game?
I played the hell out of it.
Yeah, like the ones where you're like assaulting a core or like capture the flag. Those are really fun. But some of the other mission types I wasn't enjoying as much. But overall, like I don't know, it's Unreal.
There's hardly anything new there.
Yeah, I mean the weapons. I mean, some of them are tweaked, but like all the ones you recognize are still here.
I feel very strongly. I talked to Mark Rain about this. I feel very strongly that they fell into the same pattern they fell into last generation, which was that they spent an enormous amount of their development bandwidth on building the new engine and game for this generation, and that the next version will use this engine slightly tweaked and modded up to bring new modes and some really, really, really needed, maybe, I don't say originality, but some sort of freshness to it, something to do inside the game, because you see the good multiplayer shooters online doing stuff like this.
Well, I mean, it does
innovating
have,
game modes.
The vehicles, but they didn't factor much into my gameplay. People would jump in them sometimes, but people, you get killed.
I'm curious to see if they keep Unreal going as regularly as they could, because Gears is outselling it like 10-1 or something, you know?
Well, we have some interesting news on both those subjects in the news segment, so we'll see. I don't know about it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with them, definitely.
Yeah.
So did you enjoy? Are you going to play more?
I will. I mean, I think
You will not.
I will.
Only if your friend makes you.
You know, if any of my friends want to play, I will. I wouldn't go on just playing with strangers, but it's the kind of game. It's fun with your friends. And
so, do you like the big levels with the vehicles and then like the kill the core thing? You know, warfare.
I really like the kill the core levels. Actually,
I don't like the big levels. I like agree. Intimate deathmatch.
I think this game works really well as a deathmatch game because that's where games like like the flat cannon and the biogun really come in handy.
I'm all about the flat cannon. That's my weapon of choice.
See, in the big environment though, you lose a lot of effectiveness with that weapon.
Well, I also, I like defending the base if we're playing like a team. Okay. Like I'm about defense.
Like the bigger the map, the more you really need people that you know who they are, how they're playing, and you coordinate tactics. Because if you're just like kind of doing your lone wolf thing on a big map with like a lot of other players on a big team game, it's just kind of lonely. You know, you're just doing your own thing. No one's coordinating. I think you lose the spirit.
I will say, it runs flawlessly. I had no hiccups at all. Everything ran perfectly. The frame rate was great. It was easy to jump into. It's weird because it's not the kind of game I'm used to. It's like a PC style game, and I'm not used to playing that on PlayStation. It was kind of weird.
Cool. All right, folks, there you have it. That's what you've been playing. If you want to take a quick break like we do, grab a Coke, grab something to munch on. We're going to come right back with 4-minute warning, first one in 2008. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, here we go. The hotly anticipated 4-minute warning. That's it. All right, so we're going to start right off on Hit the Ground Running with Surf Grom 9. This is sort of a longish question, so listen, and here we go.
It's also a multi-part question.
I know, but it's cool because it's going to open all the different topics that come out of this. And I think this is especially topical given the transition we're in right now in next-gen games. These days, many games are usually announced at the very early stages of development with release dates that are hardly ever met on time. They are pushed back months and sometimes even years before the releases. You got Metal Gear Solid 4, Final Fantasy 13, Alan Wake, Too Human, sometimes leading to big expectations for games that are not always met. So here are the questions. Does a long waiting period for a game lead to larger expectations for a game to deliver? Do you believe that games are being announced, shown to the public, and receiving coverage far too early in the development cycle? And should games even be shown to the media should they be shown to the media when they're further along in the development stages or in the final stages?
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so digging in a little bit deeper, I don't know. I actually like seeing a game early on, but I don't know how.
Well, the earlier you see it, the less representative it is of the actual thing, and the more it's them just guessing.
Right.
But there's a strategy to it, because there's sometimes, like announcing Metal Gear Solid 4, for example, or Final Fantasy 13, it keeps PlayStation 3 on the mind for gamers. There's a business strategy to like getting news out about those games, because you can't help but associate that with the system. And then seeing games early can be beneficial from a gamer's perspective, because sometimes, like Uncharted, when we saw that early, we had a lot of criticisms and things. And then the developers took that feedback and fixed a lot of those things. So it's sometimes good to get that out there early.
I think with sequels, we expect them to be shown early, and we want them to be shown early. And if we don't see them, we have no faith in that franchise or in the publisher. And
that's a good point.
You kind of have to. But with an original IP, you can definitely bite off more. You can make a big problem, like with Too Human, for an example. Like if you show a game for 7 years and it doesn't come out, people are like, why did I care for 7 years? So then, untested property.
So then apply that same argument, though, to Duke Nukem.
Well,
because
that's an epic problem.
But I'm saying it bit them in the butt there.
Yeah, that's one where they've taken so long that they might have destroyed the entire franchise.
You can also look at kind of the reverse of that. Like when you have an original thing that people don't know about, it's going to take longer to kind of get it in people's memory. Like I know Okami, they intentionally announced earlier than the standard 9-month window in order to get people excited about it and give it more attention. But then GTA 4, they could announce it like Apple does, and the day it comes out, and it would still sell the same. So maybe not the same, but close.
Seems to depend significantly on how high profile it is, right? I mean, that's a big part of it.
I mean, I think the David Jaffe or the Dennis Dyack idea of showing a game like 3 months before it comes out.
Do you just use them interchangeably now?
I'm sorry to both. But showing a game and then like it comes out 3 months later, that's an amazing idea, but it's almost impossible realistically to do.
Okay, so
would it even work? You don't have time to build up the excitement.
It has worked. I mean, that was the way that Vice City and San Andreas more or less happened.
There are games that are done now that we're not playing that just because they need to be marketed, we just don't know about it. Like, Diax thing is happening in some cases.
Okay.
I don't have examples for you, but like, games aren't, that's not like that ridiculous. It's just that they don't communicate that to people.
Yeah, Nintendo pulls this too sometimes. Like, they just did in Japan, like, oh, here's a new Pokemon Ranger 2. It comes out in a month. I mean, that, seriously, like last week, they showed that game for the first time, and it comes out in a month.
So now there's proof that it doesn't necessarily work, because now all of a sudden it's like, it comes and goes. It could get lost in a shuffle.
Right.
Like, there's no anticipation for it.
Yeah. Well, there's an X factor at play here also, which is how long a delay is it going to get? I mean, if you're within a reasonable amount of time of when your original release window was, then you're fine. What happens is a game like a Duke Nukem Forever where it does go on and on and on, and you're like, oh my God, is this thing ever going to get finished?
It's a nuanced debate.
I think with Spore, it's hurt it. Like,
I agree with you on that one, definitely.
But with MGS4, it's probably helped.
And again, the other thing that happens, for instance, with especially these PC games, is then you start getting caught with feature creep, and you're trying to keep up with the advances in technology. It just depends. There's too many factors that come into the whole thing. And what about expectations? I think that, that's a pretty clear-cut one. If it's going to be out there on your mind longer, you're going to start imagining about all the things it could be.
Well, and if you're showing a game that's going to come out 3 years from now, what you're showing will look somewhat like the final product will, so it's going to look better than the stuff that's coming out this year, so it's kind of an advantage there. You get like a leap on what people are doing art-wise.
It's true.
All right. Think we covered that one pretty well. Did we hit 4? There you go. All right. Next one up is from Banana Kid. He says, what do you think this year holds for downloadable content as a serious platform? It had its big start with Xbox Live Arcade and has since taken huge steps forward with things like Warhawk, Tekken 5, and Rock Band. Do you think there'll be more in the way of full games or more periodic updates to retail products? Maybe the business model Sony originally planned for GTHD could make a comeback.
I think they're going to look a lot closely at Rock Band, and they're going to want to monetize product like that. Like, Rock Band's making a lot of money, so they're going to want to do things like that. But I think definitely a lot more full games, because we talk to so many developers, and they love
on Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah, like Xbox Live Arcade.
Whether
or
it's called that or something else,
or it could be WiiWare.
That isn't in place for Xbox right now.
Huh?
I mean, that's not in place.
What's not in place?
To download full real games.
Well, that's true.
No, yes. Well, I guess it depends what you mean by a full real game, right? Like I'm talking about like game like Undertow or Space Dragon.
Well, that's not Warhawk,
right?
Or Gran Turismo 5.
But these full arcade-sized games, like developers really like it. They like not spending 2 years and trillions of dollars on a product. Something. Hey, I have a creative idea. I can whip it out in about 6 months, and very little distribution costs. We can skip the retailers. Although I hear the licensing fees are still like Microsoft knows they're going to make up for what you're not paying the retailer.
I mean, I think WiiWare is going to change it a lot, but
you do. That in itself is a big question mark.
Well, because hopefully it'll allow people to put out the games for Wii they would have charged like $30 or $40 for that aren't very good, and put them on WiiWare. Because anything that would help like the Wii software situation, I think WiiWare could. It could help take some of that garbage.
There are like full games on Wii that could be downloaded on other systems
easily.
Yeah. But you just said they're going to be bad games.
Well, not necessarily, but some of them.
Well, I think that what you will see is a continuing growth in the segment of games like Shu was talking about, the Xbox Live Arcade stuff, the PSN stuff, and if WiiWare does develop a market, I mean, WiiWare, especially in casual game market, because we already know where the audience skews. We already know that it's in so many houses. I mean, it's somewhat akin to the Apple TV argument, where it's the box that's sitting there with the television. If you can put the right product on it, you can reach the audience really well.
I'm curious how many people actually use the online Wii stuff or will, because like it seems
Virtual
like
Console
it's not that big
is a huge hit. It is. Virtual Console is colossal, so I think there's a lot of potential.
But is it a few people buying a lot of games?
We'll see. I think one thing this year we're going to see is more and more PSP. It's already out there. Like last week, an Ape Escape game came out on the PlayStation Store for PSN. No one even noticed. Like I downloaded Beats this week.
I kind of like Sony's tactic, like the siphon filter thing as well.
Yeah,
like
the original siphon filter.
Just sneaking games out there, and then here you go, it's out.
I'm all about it. I think more and more PSP downloads is great.
When is the showdown going to happen? Because this is something that brick and mortar traditional retailers are eventually going to like really draw a line in the sand about.
And I think it's the battle it's coming.
I really do think it's coming.
Well, it's hard to say because like a Walmart's not going to stock a game like an Xbox Live Arcade size game, right?
Right.
Unless you want to charge $10 for it and put it in budgetware category.
And so far they've been willing to let all that revenue stream skate by, and it's been something they thought, well, you know what, this is okay because we're building the brand, we're selling games in our video game department, we have a good relationship.
They're also selling points, so those all go to buying these games.
But where's the profitability in points? I mean, I don't know what sort of profit margin they're going to point, but I'm assuming that Microsoft's probably not giving them a big percent when they sell just a point card. It's like a monetary change.
True.
Yeah. And it's just as easy to go on into the PlayStation Store and get those the dollars for you.
And we saw the impact this had on Warhawk.
Yeah, Warhawk was definitely it sold better directly than Sony expected.
And as a result, look, you had backlash to that from the retailers, especially from niche retailers like GameSpot. I mean, it's GameStop, sorry. And I think that's going to continue to happen, and that's going to be what's going to be thwarting having big games come through, because every time a developer goes to do it, they're going to have to think Sony. Not the developer. That Sony is going to think, how much is this going to hurt my retail relationships?
GT5 Prologue will be the next test for America.
Really? I mean, how much do you think it'll be on disc sales, and how much do you think it'll be downloaded?
I have no idea.
Make a guess. Make a guess.
Why?
60-40. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. I'd probably want the disc. I don't know.
I think
that's just me. I like discs.
I think I would want the disc probably. All right. Number 3 comes from XDevourX. And he says, John was talking about how video games would mature in 2008. My question for you is, when are we going to start seeing games like American History X, a game that takes on established cultural beliefs and completely throws them for a loop?
I love that game, American History X.
It's a good one.
When can games not be criticized for petty sex scenes or using gestures as killing techniques? When are socially acceptable games like Manhunt unacceptable games like Manhunt going to start getting less attention? Basically, will this be the year the game industry takes a major step forward and make gaming a more serious contender in the entertainment world?
No.
And this ties on to Devlin Darkness's question that was asked. With the recent outcry to Mass Effect's so-called sex scene, do you ever think there's going to be a place for sexuality in games?
I'd actually use Mass Effect as an example of where it's not necessarily art and culture, but it's more advanced than, say, Manhunt, right? It's like it takes on love, like, for example, more seriously. You have to develop relationships, you have to form intimacy with characters, and it's more about character development. But look what happens, right? Like that goes out there, and then look at Fox News pouncing on it.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, the smallest little thing makes this? What if you had a game that had actual sex in it?
Yeah.
What if
that's the question,
what
right?
If Indigo Prophecy came out and it was actually like the full game and you were controlling it and everything?
Like the European version.
Or, what if you could make games the way you make movies or TV?
That's exactly it.
And Rockstar can make a game where you're a rapist. I mean, why not?
If we want to go on a witch hunt and just take samples from television, from primetime television, it's way worse than anything you could find in Mass Effect.
Complete double standard.
But it's like, the thing is, people just view video games as this foreign medium. They don't understand it. A lot of people, like you saw the Fox News report, all those people, they don't play video games. They don't understand video games. So that's the problem, where movies and television, books, music, everything else is ingrained in our culture. Video games are not yet. So I don't think, to answer this guy's question, I don't think we're there yet.
But I do let's say John had said GTA 4 is going to push it, and I really hope it does. The drunk driving, we already know, and I really hope there's more stuff in GTA 4 that pisses people off, because if anybody can do it, it's Rockstar, and pushing the envelope, keep pushing it.
It takes a game like a Grand Theft Auto to be able to push forward that border.
Yeah.
I would have agreed with you back when Manhunt 1 came out, but they had to cave in to pressure for Manhunt 2.
That's true.
The ESRB ratings standards changed from Manhunt 1 to Manhunt 2, because ESRB ratings, because those standards changed, Rockstar had to censor the game in order to sell it. They can't sell an AO game; they had to sell a mature game. So they caved into pressure. I don't blame Rockstar; I blame the ESRB.
Right. But the ESRB is so fluid. Having just beaten Uncharted is a mature rated game with a teen rating. It really is, and no one's talking about that. Go play that game. Tons of cussing, tons of blood. You're shooting black people in the head the entire game. Teen.
Well,
bringing it back to American history.
Just saying,
nice.
dude. Just saying.
Nice.
Double, triple standards. But this industry has no standards.
When you look at both Manhunts, they're far more violent than American History X.
Right.
Like, it's just that you don't have the drama and stuff that goes with it because it's a game.
I mean, the thing with Manhunt is it's almost like if in the movie business, which is where the corresponding relationship's always drawn. It's like if you put out the Saw series in the early 70s, because I don't know that the American public would have tolerated the Saw
torture porn
in the early 70s. It just hadn't gotten desensitized enough to that, and not even desensitized is the right word. It just hadn't, the medium hadn't pushed the envelope that far, and so that's why it's important that a Grand Theft Auto 4 does the thing that it does, which is push the borders forward without going with that. I mean, Manhunt. I mean, it's a shame that Manhunt 2 just wasn't a better game, because you can't just. We're not to a point where you can just have such a niche game of, let's do torture porn, let's do silly torture porn. Like, why? I don't get it. I don't know. When's it going to happen? Anyone want to take a guess?
A few more years.
I would say more than 2, but less than 5.
Well, it has to happen on a big scale with a game that can actually sell, which is going to be tricky. So it's going to be somebody like BioWare or, I don't know, like the Far Cry team that's working on Far Cry 2 now. Some people who are thinking like along those lines that are going to do something like this that is going to make it.
It'll be a sophisticated game with good characters and good stories. It'll be a coming together of factors like the maturing political landscape, changing of generations, changing of the people who are in office right now. And I don't just mean the president. I mean, we'll have elections. It'll be all new. It'll be a new slate. It'll be a new game. It'll be a continuing advancing border. Number 4 comes from another one. How many stories in games are actually worth half a shit? I hear so many people going off on how awesome some stories are, but I think that if you read basic literature, it really shines a light on how lame they are. I'm not saying all game stories suck, but most of them do.
That's not a question.
What's a point to us to talk about? Okay.
Everything's relative. And like, I've played tons of games with good stories. You're obviously just not playing the right games.
There's definitely a point
relative,
here.
Though.
Yeah,
it's
like,
all relative.
Like, to go to the American History X example, like that was more memorable to me than any single game story I've played. And yet there have been a lot of things in game stories that I've gotten more out of than that.
I think people don't expect much from their game stories, and it's very genre specific. As someone who plays a lot of role playing games, like in the last 20 years, I've played a lot of good stories and like gripping stories with great characters, emotional depth, things I'm invested in. But if you play a lot of shooters, you don't expect stories. I mean, so when a shooter has story, like Half-Life, everyone like goes batshit insane.
Or BioShock, which you still need to play, Shane.
Next on my list.
You do need to play some BioShock.
Next on my list.
I would say that I actually sort of agree with another one's hypothesis in that as much as I like story and will promote games for stories, I probably should rein myself in a lot of times and explain that I think that when I'm talking about a game that has a good or a great story, that in reference to especially literature, it would be a dime store romance novel. I mean,
a hard-looking romance?
Yeah, I mean, let's be serious. Right now, that is one of the struggles, is that the games with good, and I'm using the air quotes, story, are following extremely set formulas that have been used over and over and over in literature and movie. That doesn't make them bad.
Right.
I mean, blockbuster summer movies do this.
One thing I will say, this generation, storytelling is getting better. Like games like Devil May Cry 4 and Heavenly Sword are like traditional games with like traditional stories, but they're told a lot better.
Right. It's
like how
production.
It's conveyed to you.
Production's become much better. Overall, the pacing and actually following the right form of doing a story, how you lay out the story arc, building character connection, all those sorts of things has gotten better.
But, just going to an established writer like the girl who did Gears of War, I haven't played that game, but I know everyone said the story was not all that great, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it wasn't.
So
just
because you hire a writer doesn't mean you're going to get a good story either.
Well, we got to look at it at a practical level, too. I don't think it's even fair to compare games to literature, just like you don't compare games to movies.
Yeah.
Because they're completely different mediums. There's different experiences a gamer wants to get out of a game than just a great story written like a book, right? So if you're sitting down reading a book, you have certain expectations. If I'm playing a game, I have certain expectations. Now, if you write a deep enough story that could be the equivalent of a great novel, it'd probably be a really boring game.
Right. You can get the best people who are writing the best books, the best movies, anything, get them all together. They would not be able to do the same in games because there's no editing, there's no structure.
Right.
You have to let the player do what they want.
Did anyone here play Advent Rising?
No.
By
I want
Orson Scott Card.
Right, by Orson Scott Card. I mean, that would be one of the games that I'd like to know how it was received as far as
game was
story.
a retelling of Mormonism.
Well, I know that it had those
through a sci-fi lens.
I know it had those overtones, but I thought it was one to go back to because I think that
I think the developers and publishers of that trilogy thought it wasn't one to go back to.
I meant for this discussion.
Well,
not
the developers
for playing.
are still working with Orson Scott Card.
Oh,
are they really? Interesting. I think the challenge, like what Matt was pointing out, is that if you're a author of written literature, you're not thinking in terms of, okay, someone's playing the character. You're able to lay out your story arc and timeline very locked in. You're able to lock in all the points. You're able to describe all the places. You're able to absolutely control where people go. And the closer you take a game to that, the more broken it's gotten for us as playing it, because the experience gets dull. On the other hand, every game has a start and a middle and a finish. I mean, every story has a start and an end, and that doesn't really work with the open world game, especially. It's gotten popular, unless it's like GTA. But it's still in GTA, you're doing these missions, and the missions are leading somewhere, but half the fun of the game is just, dicking around in the game. So it's a tough challenge. I think that we'll get better at it. I think you'll see writers for games develop much like you have screenwriters who adapt novels to make them into good movies. Pantless Jedi, number 5. And this was one of the ones that was voted most popular by people chiming in on the thread. What time period or location setting do you feel is underrepresented in the current game market?
I would say modern, non-military, anything.
Yeah, lots of modern stuff.
You're talking about Yakuza. That's a modern, non-military game. It's completely refreshing. You've never played anything like that before.
Yeah, I've never played a game that feels like I feel just walking down the street.
Yeah.
But would you want that? How would that be
absolutely.
fun?
I mean, I think that's what would sell. When you look at games like Kane and Lynch and stuff, it's this modern feel.
Like
That's
you
what is
play
selling.
that Coca-Cola commercial where that dude's walking down the street.
That's Grand Theft Auto.
GTA.
And that's what Grand Theft Auto is.
But he's doing good things.
Right, but these are the kind of games that would sell. This is like the MTV generation that's going to buy these games, that it looks to this in music videos and everything, and I think it'd be popular.
I think it's hard, because people know what reality looks like, and
right.
It's hard to recreate that.
And what would you do? Would you be shooting people in that? That's not appropriate necessarily. So,
you know what? It's easier for me to think in terms of what's been overdone, and then try and filter out what hasn't been done.
Post-apocalyptic sci-fi.
There's plenty of that. There's plenty of
Space Marines.
I actually would like more sci-fi that doesn't have magic, like sci-fi RPGs that don't involve
hard sci-fi.
Yeah, like no magic, no swords, so not Phantasy Star Online, not Mass Effect, just true sci-fi. Like not even the Star Wars games, no force powers, just old school science fiction.
I think in terms of stuff that would have really cool art styles to it, instead of just going tomb raiding, what about some sort of game that took place in Mayan or Incan worlds? I mean, there's a lot of cool mythology there, a lot of cool architecture, a lot of
Apocalypto the game. No, really, actually.
It's a Sega game.
It doesn't exist, but they can make it. Or like the Renaissance. There's different time periods.
The Renaissance would be really cool.
There are underrepresented historical time periods.
There's a game announced this week that takes place in the Great Depression. Faith in a 45.
Interesting, sort of like same time period as Mafia.
It sounds very...
Yeah. Or L.A. Noire.
Or L.A. Noire.
It's a little more Western.
It seemed very Bonnie and Clyde to me.
Exactly. That's how they describe it, actually.
Bonnie and Clyde. It's different. It's something new.
So you think it's cool?
One-up exclusive next week. Plug.
But yeah, I'd say just look at things people aren't doing, and don't do Space Marines. Everyone's doing World War II Space Marines. We're tired.
Okay, but what about this? There's always room at the top.
For what?
For it, there's always room at it's just a figure of speech. There's always room at the top. So why not do Space Marines if you think you're doing the best Space Marine game ever? Would you? I mean, that would still be compelling.
So I guess Bungie and Infinity Ward can continue doing it.
I think where else would I want to go? Egypt. Egypt could be really cool. There's a huge amount of potential there.
You can play the PS2 platformer Sphinx.
Yeah, there are a few games.
A few games. So we're talking underutilized, not just completely non-existent. What else? Anybody?
Not enough games take place in heaven.
Oh, you see,
but a lot of levels
that's creative. Anyway, so there's some ideas. I think that actually we'll throw that open and let some of the board members jump in too, because I think that'd be an interesting one to see what people come up with on top of that. Number 6 comes from Gutter Trash. Have third-party publishers and developers really entered next gen yet, or are they just making the same old games but prettier in HD?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of new game concepts and types in this generation.
It kind of depends what you mean by next gen, because part of how I define next gen are the graphics, right? It's the graphics. Like if like Gears of War, that's like the game like for the Xbox 360 where I felt like, okay, now we're hitting next gen. Not the first, like not the launch games for 360.
Well, yeah, and Uncharted the same way, like graphically.
Yeah,
well, there have been gameplay innovations for 20 years. U-Force was forever ago. You know, like that's.
I kind of feel like if you take away graphics and you're talking about gameplay, then the Wii, a lot of the Wii games,
I gotta say,
that's
Wii
next
Sports,
generation.
Wii Sports is in a lot of ways the most next gen gameplay experience I still had.
No argument. I think you can make a really strong argument. I think you can really strongly back that up. This, I think, also draws on something that someone mentioned in the thread about what John had said once upon a time on One Up Yours, which was that, so far, all of the processing power of the two, we think of, the 360 and PS3 was being devoted to more lavish visuals. When do we start seeing advances in AI?
Well, I think this isn't related, but I do think that Little Big Planet is another one that I'm looking forward to as a next-gen experience.
Okay, absolutely. That's an excellent example. And I think that there is a good number of titles where you could say, they are making next-gen games that are just HD versions of stuff we've played before, and you can just rattle off the list. Even Uncharted, right? I mean, even Uncharted is
it's just a prettier version of Tomb Raider mixed with other things, Resident Evil and Gears of War, whatever. But like Ratchet's a good example, just a prettier version of Ratchet.
Absolutely. Right? So I would love to see some more advances in AI in what do you do with games. I mean, how can you interact with them? I think that's where, like you said, like the Wii goes down that pathway.
Yeah, like community stuff like Little Big Planet.
Community stuff like Little Big Planet would be big. There's lots of opportunities to do there. I don't know if
Halo 3, you could argue next gen with all the features with Forge and the way you can trade maps, trade safe films.
I was gonna argue with you at first, but yeah, you're right. Actually, with
I'm not talking about the single player campaign.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. The Forge part and the sharing film thing, absolutely an advancement.
And you know what game has good AI? Fear. I think I'm really surprised that even shooters like that have come out a year and a half later.
What was Fear? It was a bunch of rooms designed to have good AI.
That's
all Fear was.
They fooled me. I don't like the level design. I hate the level design actually in that game.
But that's why the AI is good.
Yeah, I like the AI.
And play Fear some more because I think part of it is it also fools you. It's not always good as much as it's just moving. I mean, that is part of it. Is that the opponents are constantly moving, not necessarily moving intelligently, but just moving.
Well, they'll move, but they'll flank you. Like they will throw a grenade, and then they'll go around, come out some other hallway, and try to get you from the side. But like now, I'm playing Call of Duty 4. The AI is not anywhere like that.
No, it's definitely not up to the same caliber. And that's sort of the point of where next gen would be, is when you can do a game for me that has Call of Duty visuals but has fear level of at least of the enemies flanking, keeping moving, not staying behind one piece of cover waiting for me to shoot them. I don't know if it's going to happen on these machines. That might actually be the harbinger of the next generation of next gen.
I think it's just going to be so gradually. Like, you're never going to notice, like, bam, it's done, it's changed, it's so much better. I think it's just going to gradually keep improving.
Number 7. Andrew TR, you get the last question of the day. Do you guys, as gamers, get more excited about titles that redefine their genre in interesting ways and don't always succeed?
Yes.
Or merely ones that refine them and succeed to a higher degree? Example. Mass Effect is sci-fi done well. There's nothing particularly revolutionary about it. The dialogue trees aren't as diverse as everyone hoped, but they are a huge step up from KOTOR, which is better for everyone, compared to games like Crackdown or Assassin's Creed that had an idea that seemed really great, but faltered in their execution. What they did was new and right is good, but everything else was lacking.
I think it's easy to get more excited about the games that kind of completely reinvent things, but it's much more likely that the games that don't do that are going to be better and more polished because they're not taking as many risks.
I would rate Mass Effect higher, but I'm more excited about Crackdown.
But you see, here's the question. Are we talking about excited before they come out?
Right.
Or are we talking about excited when I take it home and play it for 20 hours?
Well, but you see, it's excited for the first hour or excited for the whole game?
Shane, what thrills you? You like this look on your face.
I mean, I'm really excited when I play something that's completely new, but I'm usually not excited until I play it, whereas I'm excited about refinements of things I like. So, in general, like, I would say I'm more excited about refinements than about innovative things, because I don't know if I like it until I play it. If it's innovative. I was talking today about how much I love WarioWare Twisted, how it's like I gave the game a 10. I think it's a brilliant concept that no one ever did and went anywhere with, but it's so out there and so amazing that I love it.
Right. There are probably 20 established, this is a safe way to make a really good game. And anyone who's going to try something new awesome, great.
Good luck.
More power to you.
Yeah.
But it's a big risk.
Shane makes a good point.
A lot of failures when you try something new.
Because Portal was like that for me. I was late to the game on that one, but everyone was talking about it, and I knew the concept. I understood how the game worked, but it didn't excite me until you actually did it.
Nobody was excited about Portal until that game came out.
Yet it was the exact same thing they were promising the entire time.
Right. I remember.
I think the PC.
A year ago, I was at an event at a hotel, and Portal was the only thing playable from from the Orange Box, and nobody was even playing it.
It was kind of console-ish. That was kind of a console crowd. I think Shu's actually right. I think the PC crowd was pretty stoked for
when
Portal.
The first trailer came out, everyone saw everything that Portal was. So Portal then had I don't know how long, maybe a year of no one cares because we know exactly what it is. There's nothing more to reveal. There's no features that they're going to dole out. That's the game, and they may have announced it too soon.
Right. It didn't seem as fun as everybody realized. Oh, it really is that creative.
Yeah, you have to play it. Yeah. You really have to.
So, and that's the thing, because when they hit on both, when they hit on a well-executed game and something that refines, then you have this really great euphoric moment. So when you see a game before it comes out that is trying something new and doing something new, if there's even a glimmer of hope that it might get it right, you start to build up the highest level of excitement because you think, oh my God, this could be another one of those
And I'll
games.
say those glimmers of hope are very rare.
Right.
When we see a lot of games early on, it's like, oh, another World War II shooter, great, another stealth action game, haven't seen that before.
Right, and it's very hard to it gets harder and harder to get excited about refining games because, again, you've seen them a bunch of times and you're not getting that punch.
Especially when you see a game that doesn't refine. I mean, when we talk about those are the only two possibilities, a lot of games are just me too shit that don't do anything. Yeah.
Which is, the biggest problem in the industry.
Exactly.
Wow. Heavy. There you go, folks. And there you'll have it.
I think next time when we do 4-minute warning, Skip, I'm going to sing Radiohead's 4-minute warning before we do it next time.
There you go.
Looking forward to it.
Acapella.
Yeah.
Outstanding. You won't have to suffer through that this time. What you will have to hang around for is news, and we have plenty of it. Everything from a little more info on Final Fantasy 13 and Grand Theft Auto 4 to a white PS3 coming to the United States. Stick around. We'll be right back with that. All right, here we go with the news brought to you by no one.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Corona?
Just having a little fun. So as Matt got to see, along with him getting to see it, the gods and powers that be at Rockstar have given us the release date for Grand Theft Auto 4. That would be, as you predicted, Mr. Shane, sooner rather than later. Way to go. April the 29th.
EGM.
Wait, isn't that later than because they
No,
were
you were saying November or some such bullshit. And Greg Ford, he's EGM's reviews editor. He says that this is because his birthday is the day after. He's like the number one GTA fan, so that's why they picked it.
So, there you go. Also, hitting the scene this week was some information from, and I believe this was from Famitsu, correct? On Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy Versus 13?
It was all over V-Jump, Famitsu. Basically, a new trailer came out at the V-Jump Festa a few weeks ago, and this was assets from that trailer. Okay,
cool. So the first thing we got out of that is on the more commonly thought of Final Fantasy 13 game, the big one. That would be a new character. She a young girl with brown hair. She belongs to Pulse, which is the opposite world of Cocoon. And the big thing was that they started to show the summons. And apparently summons are also going to be part of the main storyline and figure into...
They'd previously shown 2 summons. They showed 3 new ones.
So they'd shown Shiva, right?
They'd shown Shiva and her sister, and they'd shown one other one. What was it?
I don't know, but here's ones I highlighted as a new one. So they this time they showed Afreet, Carbuncle, and Siren.
That's right.
So the impressions of the new footage were that the movie and the background music is quite different from previous clips. Feels epic and tranquil.
The really encouraging takeaway from this is they're showing more and more, speeding it up. No one knows when this game is going to come out, but the fact that they're showing new things, encouraging in terms of the game being out. And then Tetsuya Nomura, the director of Fabio Nova Crystallis and of Versus 13, he said this week that a playable demo of Final Fantasy 13 should be this year in Japan. That's what he said.
So do you think that he's hedging his bets then that the actual game's not coming out this year?
Hard to say.
I mean,
it kind of sounds like it.
It does to me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I think everyone's kind of expecting it to be a spring 09 title in Japan.
Do you think there's any chance that they would work towards a global release strategy then?
I was talking about this with Brian. I think there is a chance because with Last Remnant, the upcoming game for PS3 and 360, the Unreal Engine game that Square Enix is doing, that is going to be a simultaneous worldwide release.
Well, but it's also the whole concept of the game is to appeal to both markets.
But they did the localization really early. Like, the localization is done now. So it's possible that if they're smart, they'll start working on the 13 localization really, really early.
I'd be really shocked.
I'd be shocked too, but moving forward, they understand how important Europe and America is to the success of this game and to PlayStation 3 and everything, and it would be a very smart move, in my opinion.
See, along with what you said, last year at GDC, they talked a good bit in one of their sessions about their improving their localization process and not just speeding it up, but bringing it into the development cycle much sooner in the game's lifespan, recognizing how important international markets to them were.
My fear would be that if it were to ship in spring in Japan, that they would hold it back to fourth quarter 2009 in America just for marketing purposes.
Well, we'll get a chance to see. I think I wouldn't be stunned anymore so much as I would be surprised, but I'd be pleasantly surprised. Also, Final Fantasy Versus 13, a new heroine was revealed, and
I think she's actually a rival, but
she's outfitted in a black dress and a short skirt. She wears white blouse in dark city streets with a full moon in the sky.
I think she's a girlfriend and a rival.
Wow, that's
nice.
Of course.
It's
like Romeo and Juliet. Did you check it out? What do you get? Any feedback on that
she was actually debuted at the trailer that no one's ever seen from TGS. Because whenever Square shows these trailers, are in these closed mega theaters at these Japanese events. You have to wait in line for 3 hours to see them, and then they never release them. And they actually showed that girl, a lot of new characters, a lot of new environments. If you go online, you can see these scans and see all these new assets, and they look beautiful as expected.
One game that's looking suspiciously similar to another game.
Oh, man. Yeah.
As featured on the cover of Games for Windows magazine would be the new Battlefield game. It's the upcoming Battlefield Heroes.
That looks exactly like Team Fortress 2.
It's hard not to say that, isn't it? I mean
that issue's not out, by the way.
Oh.
But we do have the cover image.
Any day.
Yeah, hitting subscribers any day, and you can check the cover image where you can see the first glimpse of that artwork on OneUp.
So it looks like,
But as I was saying, Incredibles did it first, so I mean, who's copying who?
Okay, so let's talk about the bigger thing.
I was trying to place that character. He's totally
Incredibles.
He's Incredibles. Yeah,
he is actually very Incredibles. The big deal about this game, of course, is that it's going to be fully supported through advertising and microtransactions. So
you buy your bullets individually? Nice.
And it's free. Completely free game.
So it's completely free. So you'll be able to get the game for free. They're starting up sort of they described it as a MySpace-like player pages that you'll have online, which will have advertising on them. Mm-hmm. The homepage for the game or the online hub for the game will have advertising on it. And then there's also going to be a microtransaction system, although one of the balance issues they have is making sure that people who spend a lot of microtransactions don't, unbalance the game.
Yeah.
That's pretty brilliant, though, because if you're into it at all, and you're like, I'm not going to spend a lot of money, but you see people with this cooler shit, better guns, better vehicles, you're gonna want to spend more money. It's like, well, what's another whatever?
Well, if you haven't spent any money at all, you're like, well, I would have spent $50 on this game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is kind of a nerdy reference, but that's what basically killed Derby Owners Club, the big Sega arcade game that's popular in Japan.
That was huge.
It's in the U.S. too.
Oh, okay.
And basically, this is a game that the more you spend and the more you breed your horses, the better you are. So, people were spending thousands of dollars on this arcade game just so that they could have the best,
I remember I went to an arcade a few years ago, and one whole floor was just Derby Stallion, and it was full of smoking businessmen who were all
Derby Stallion's a different game.
Oh, it's different. I was thinking this must have been some other horse game, but
there are a few. Yeah,
it was played, exclusively by 40-something businessmen smoking.
Yeah, it's a good game though.
Do you remember maybe a year ago when we talked about the Halo 2 and the walled online community that these games create? By the drop off that once people start playing it, the hardcore player gets very good and begins intimidating.
You go in, you get killed, you're afraid. Yeah.
This sort of institutionalizes it. It makes me concerned. That's what he's talking about with the Derby game. Is it almost institutionalizes the idea that the hardcore create their community, and once the game gets launched a month or two out, the community set itself up, raised the walls, and it's their own little playground.
Yep. Well, they can fix it similar to matchmaking if they can figure out. Okay, this is kind of like maybe the people who spent an X amount of dollars, right? Like these are the under $30 club or something, for example. That might be a way to kind of help separate the people who are really loaded up. And then you can also support servers that have like people who just want to go all out and spend hundreds of dollars.
I think griefing could get out of control. I mean, I see Sean Elliott just waiting there for noobs to appear and like, shoot them in the head with his $10,000 gun.
His $10,000 gun. I'll be really interested as the issue gets out there and people start to see the game in images, their response to EA's insistence that they had the idea for the art style at the same time as Team Fortress 2.
You know what's also interesting about that game? That they wanted...
Valve takes forever on their games.
They had the idea at the same time, Matt. Mark my words.
They want to make it a low-end game, too. I don't know if the art style is going to help them. They want to make this a game that you could play on cheap, low-end, common
which
systems.
Is critical to the idea here of making it ad and microtransaction supported, because you have to get a lot of people. You got to get a lot of eyeballs out there to sell the advertising.
Yep.
On the Team Fortress 2 tip, moving right along, all sorts of improvements along with the 35 new medic achievements that we'd already learned about. They're getting special unlockable weapon sets for the different classes, and it's going to be driven by the achievements. And as you go through unlocking, as you go through gaining achievements, you'll hit points and tiers at which you'll unlock new equipment. Of course, the big deal here is that they also have to figure in how not to break the game with upgraded weapons. Also, they're bringing in a new map that's going to be called Gold Rush that also includes a new game mode. And the new game mode is pretty cool. And this is what I was talking about how when Unreal Tournament is challenged because they need to keep injecting new ideas into the game. This time, the blue team has to escort a mining cart to the finish of a level. The trick is that the more blue you have nearby, the faster it moves, but it stops if a red team is near it. So it kind of plays into your whole how do you defend. You see, that's kind of a cool dynamic of how do you defend. A lot of times this comes into play because a lot of times players playing these team games will send scouts out to go harry the other team. But if they don't keep enough people near the iron core, the ore cart, then it's not going to keep moving.
Is that a free download?
Probably.
Oh, cool.
It's Valve. They'll add it on. They're good about that. It's not going to be free for console gamers because
they haven't announced it for consoles.
They haven't,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's not announced.
I think the 360 needs that a lot worse than the PC guys because PC, there's so much more content on the PC side, and I was actually kind of disappointed, because you hear all these great things about Team Fortress 2, and then when I played it on a 360, of course, because I want the achievements. And I was like, I was kind of over it really quickly. It didn't really hook me in.
But here's the challenge, and it's one of the reasons that they're still trying to figure out how to work with live. Epic is still trying to figure out how to work with live for Unreal Tournament. Is this stuff, if they did it on 360, would probably be for pay.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna have to pay for it for sure. Yeah.
And suddenly there's gonna be a huge argument. That's not gonna. That's a very hard PR situation to.
Yeah.
To
I mean, I don't want to charge a lot for it, but I think it's just there's so few maps and modes in the 360 Orange box, so I think it needs to be beefed up.
You want more?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, there you go. What you won't get any more of, apparently, is downloadable content for Gears of War. This is kind of disappointing because...
they're about to announce a sequel. Come on.
You got the PC stuff if you want it. There's enough.
Still a little disappointing that we didn't get more before we got to this point. You know what? I almost agree that the point in time that they're closing the shop down, so to speak, is about right. I just wish they had gotten more out before that.
Well, I don't think the problem is... I think they got out enough downloadable content. I think they didn't put out enough content to begin with in the original disc. Like 3 modes that were very similar.
Right.
Didn't you give the game a 10-shoe?
Yeah, well, it's a single-player co-op.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like, multiplayer is not Gears focus anyway.
Right.
It wasn't. Yeah, and it was added in. I mean, we know that was like something they put on at the end. And then
did the PC stuff ever become available on 360? No.
You mean the 5th act?
Right.
No.
All right, check.
So what did become available, and this is a story we actually picked up off of IGN, is that a total of 6 multiplayer maps and 1 game mode and 250 achievement points will be the entire entire batch of DLC for the game. Microsoft was interviewed by IGN and told them, we don't have anything planned for Gears of War right now in terms of DLC, so that's pretty much the end of that story. Matt? Are you braced?
For what?
Are you sitting down? You sitting down comfortable? God of War 3.
All right, so let's do the math on this thing. So there's the rumor that God of War 3 is not coming until 2009.
That's the rumor,
now, apart from Shane's rumor that it's coming in 2008, no one had reason to believe it was coming in 2008 either.
This is true.
Okay, God of War 2 took 2 years.
Okay.
Shipped March 2007.
All right.
If God of War 3, which, by the way, is not building on a game engine that's already been built, also took 2 years, it wouldn't be out until March 2009. So, given that you have to do the PS3 tech along with it, that seems totally natural. It's like, okay, 2009 makes perfect sense. It's like, why? And why is this news? Why is everybody picking up this rumor that's just like
people are
pulled out of thin air anyway?
Up in arms that a game that has been announced, but has never been shown ever.
Right.
It hasn't really been officially announced.
It was.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just
it was a backhanded announcement, but it was officially done that way by Sony on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why? Because God of War is to hotness for this generation.
I mean, I don't think anyone would be stunned if it doesn't come out this year. I'd be stunned if it wasn't shown this year.
Yeah.
It would be a smart move to like show a first trailer or something, kind of get people interested.
Well, we're already interested in 2 Ubisoft games. Well, one Ubisoft game we're already interested in, and another one that you already probably knew was coming anyway, and they're both apparently going to be delayed again. We always get Ubisoft news through financial statements. It's very interesting. But all the news I've read the last couple of years, you get a lot of information out of their financial disclosure stuff. So, Prince of Persia has a new sequel coming.
You can see some screenshots online if you look hard enough.
Surfer Girl loves co-op.
And there you go. Sometime in the next fiscal year, which for Ubisoft is April 1st, 2008 through March 31st, 2009.
I think you can expect Prince of Persia this fall.
Really?
Yeah.
And also, Haze has been delayed again and now slated for some time also in that fiscal year. So
Good.
Would you like to predict when Haze is going to be done? The future's very hazy, I know. Pull out the Magic 8-Ball.
You just said that.
It'll come out the same day as Killzone 2 or Resistance 2?
See, that's the thing. Like, they're screwed.
Really?
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
They did put themselves in a very difficult situation, but I think this is a case where, like she was talking about when we were talking about games shown early, that there has been a strong amount of feedback when we've seen Haze and when other...
And, like...
Will it remain PS3 exclusive?
They said it will.
Haze...
Today.
What I don't get is why everyone cares about that game.
Exactly.
It's
the developer, Free Radical, is well liked.
Yeah, but what have they done that's like really amazing and awesome?
People like
Time Splitters 3 was really good.
But it wasn't awesome. Like, I don't think anyone would
Joe thought it was like a 10.
Best limperest shooter ever.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Prince of Persia, that's going to be exciting.
And that's not said in a swishy way. I mean, that's said that, like, you've played the game. You know what? If you haven't played Time Splitters, the way the game moves is like that.
You're not calling it gay, no.
No, I didn't realize how that would come out.
Like the drug aspect of Haze is interesting, somewhat interesting. And
Could be.
And the 2 sides you're on in the single player is somewhat interesting, but it needs more time, and hopefully this time will help.
What stood out to me about that game is they've gotten a lot of feedback from us like that, like, why do you care? Why is it interesting? And every time we've always heard this story, there's also there's also another big deal to Haze that we haven't revealed yet, but they never have revealed it. So I'm kind of wondering if they're just kind of thinking, we better keep our bases open on this one. 2 bases that won't be being kept open would be the Juiced and Stuntman series, because THQ is calling them to a close.
What a loss.
Well, okay.
Okay, Stuntman 2 was a big improvement.
Right.
It's true. But Juiced, who needs Juiced? We already have a Need for Speed every year.
I totally agree. Who cares about Juice? But Stuntman, it's too bad because you can make that's a great concept.
Yeah, it is. And they did improve it.
Yeah.
They did.
But not enough to make it like a dominant game.
And that's the problem, right? The bigger struggle is that the baseline they started with, the original Stuntman, was just bad.
Yes.
It was a great idea that you looked at and you're like, oh, this should be super cool. And then you played and you're like, oh my God, I hate this. I'm going to break a controller.
Yes.
I think I might actually have broken a controller on that game because it was so infuriating. And it did get better with the second one. Anyway, we do feel bad for the...
What I find weirder in the THQ announcement was the cancellation of the PS2 version of the upcoming Destroy All Humans game. Like, if anything, cancel the PSP version. Don't cancel the PS2 version.
True, especially given the install base. We talked about that pretty recently. Moving right along, this is one of the more interesting hot rumors to get spread around the internet of late, which is this is 8bitjoysticks.com, who did an interview with a source who had left Microsoft on the truth about the red rings of death and the Xbox 360 failure rates. So just to bring you quickly up to speed, the gist of this was that this source said that the failure rate is around 30%, that all Xbox 360s will probably fail early. This quarter, they're expecting 1 million failures. Most of those are Xenons, which if you don't know what Xenon is, that's the code name for the original 360s. Some of them are repeat failures. Most of them are new failures. Life expectancy is all over the map because the design has very little margin for all of the most important parameters. Later on in this interview, this source claims that most of the overheating problem is a result of the GPU and not the CPU. It's poor cooling, and winds up saying that system-wide design problems due to a production schedule that shipped a full year before the competition systems caused most of the trouble. Says, yes, it wasn't mature enough, too many design defects, lack of design margins, immature test processes and equipment, insufficient PB-free manufacturing. This is bonk. I'm sorry. This is a disgruntled employee.
Well, I mean, it's very
exaggerated.
It's very damning stuff, but I'd rather this same person had come out with some details about some other problem in the past that turned out to be true.
Some of it is definitely
the report, the source did, but not the site. The source being interviewed had nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay.
This site, 8-Bit Joystick, has had some stuff right before. That with the Bungie leaving Microsoft being their biggest one. What were you gonna say?
I mean, part of it's definitely true. I mean, it might be true. We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, that is the big thing, is we don't know. We're never going to know the answer to this subject. I mean, that's the honest truth.
I have a source, too. We're trying to investigate this further, but it didn't go very far. But guy who claims he was an Xbox engineer, and they knew well ahead of time, before the first Xbox 360 hit store shelves, that these things were not going to go well.
Why the hell would they do that?
They had to get them out. They were like, we got holiday season, we got to beat the PS3. We want that 1 year head start.
There's a point at which, if you can fix it later, if you can clean it up later, go ahead and do it.
This system was announced just a short time before it actually came out.
Let me just say this. I don't want to believe it because it's shitty.
But the problem,
it's really shitty.
The problem is real.
The problem I believe. The problem is obviously real. And the 30% part I fully believe. But this part about Microsoft not having mature test processes and equipment, Microsoft's got more money than God. They have plenty of equipment.
It doesn't mean they know what to do with it, though.
That's true. That's true.
But check this out. We had a guest on EGM Live recently as one of our reader friends. His name's Jay Sylvie. He went through 7 Xboxes.
That's horrible.
7
That's
Xbox
ridiculous.
360s. And even one, like, as soon as he brought it in, plugged it in, tried to play a game, boom.
I mean, if you take a poll, I know 20 people who've had Red Rings of Death. I mean, hi.
And I will say this, though. I know plenty of people, self included, who have launch units that work fine.
Yeah, I've been, knock on wood, I've been personally really lucky.
Mine too.
Here's my take on it. We'll never know the truth, but one thing we do know for sure is that the failure rate's completely unacceptable, and Microsoft could do a better job handling that. And they could definitely do a better job of handling Xbox Live outages than promising something nice for free and delivering Undertow. No offense to Undertow, okay? It's a fine game. Nick Sutner, our reviews editor, actually really likes the game. But saying you're going to get something great and then just giving us this one...
Wait. They promised a Xbox Live Arcade game, and then they gave you Undertow. What would you have picked instead of that? That's like one of the prime games right now.
Points. I agree with Andrew.
Sure. Wait, what if you have it already?
Well, so this is great. If you have it already, Major Nelson says on his blog that you can call customer service and they'll take care of you.
Weird.
Does that mean they'll kill you?
I don't know. Does it have a happy ending?
Wow. At least it's something.
It is something, and that's cool. If you don't want to do points, maybe a here's 5 games, choose one sort of deal. I mean, what if you're a puzzle game player and you don't want Undertow?
Or that, and give you a prorated credit for however, take the $50. Your year subscription, or however long the outage was. Like if you're out.
Oh, give you like an extra couple days on your account.
Exactly. That's a better way to do it. Extend your subscriptions.
Sam's answer was a pipe dream. He was like, "Give me Res HD." He's a fool for Res HD. He's so into it. Let's see, we're moving into the litigious part of the news, which is back to the Silicon Knights suit against our friends over at Epic, and that would be that apparently, according to Shack News, multiple Unreal Engine 3 licensees have been served with subpoenas. This means that different developers who are using the engine are being served with subpoenas to appear in the court case. I like Mark Rain's response, which is I love it when he gets out in public, does stuff like this. I'd like to apologize to any of our licensees who Silicon Knights have inconvenienced. We know that, like us, they just want to make great games.
Yeah, I mean, really, this news shouldn't be surprising surprising.
Not at all.
Given what's going on, but I mean, it's basically just official. And Mark Rain's a dick.
Oh, Mark, he loves you. He's got your picture on his desk.
OJ would like to apologize to the families of...
Whoa! Come on. No, don't go down that road. In the interviews...
Wait, I think the bigger question is, why do you like Epic and Mark Rain so much?
Oh, I don't. I'm just giving him a hard time. Why do I like Mark? Mark's funny. He took me
he's funny.
We went for good barbecue in North Carolina. That was all right. I didn't do Unreal Tournament any favors. It was okay game. So the suit is, let's see, here on the Shack News story, which is, by the way, if you're looking for it, subpoenas served to multiple Unreal Engine 3 licensees over contracts. Epic responds. There have been a couple of responses from developers. And unfortunately, they're anonymous. The first quote was that it is true that Epic was very late in delivering key features to Unreal Engine 3 during the development of Gears of War, said a programmer working for a major developer. And they went on to say that UE3 isn't perfect by any means, but I don't feel Epic misrepresented it in any way when we licensed it. That comes from Josh Jeffcoat, a former Gearbox level designer.
That's an old quote, though. That's not.
Is it?
Yeah.
I wonder what the people who had to cancel the games they'd spent millions of dollars making for PS3 would have to say about this.
See, that's the thing. It's like a lot of times in the game industry, it's kind of accepted that things can get delayed, whereas in the real business world, it wouldn't be. So it's really just those things clashing.
The problem that I see out of this is the posturing has gotten really, really, really sharp, and there's a very hard line being drawn in the Scion, and it seems to me that there should have been some opportunity to settle this amicably. And I mean, we're going to talk to Dennis, and I mean, obviously you can't comment now that it's a lawsuit, and neither can Mark.
Right.
But I wonder what opportunities there were to solve this before it became a let's make each other look like shit in front of public.
I mean, whatever outcome this has, it's going to change the industry.
It makes them both look bad.
It does. You're right. It does. It doesn't. There's no winner here. There's absolutely no winner here. Coming up at the Game Developers Conference, we will have the Game Developers Choice Awards. Nominees were announced. No big surprises here. BioShock raked in a bunch of nominations. Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed, Puzzle Quest. Anything you guys are particularly interested to hear about? Best game design was BioShock, Call of Duty 4, Mass Effect, Portal, Super Mario Galaxy.
What's the title of the second category?
Best Visual Art.
Yeah, why is it called that?
Well...
What's nominated
for Best Visual Art?
Because they're too cool to say graphics.
Actually, I think they nailed this. Assassin's Creed, Team Fortress 2, Crysis, BioShock, and Uncharted: Drake's Fortune. Which that's a very tough lineup to choose from.
Pretty crop.
That is a very, very pretty crop. What else we got here? Anyone care about any of this other stuff? Best Writing. Best Writing actually is kind of funny. Best Writing is Portal, God of War 2, Mass Effect, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and BioShock.
I'm glad it's not the Crash Bandicoot party game that got nominated for some other writing award 2 weeks ago.
Anyway, innovations, stuff like Rock Band, Portal, Flow, Peggle, and Mass Effect. Peggle, awesome, especially on your iPod.
Rock Band for innovation.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of people say that. I'm not sure I buy that.
Hey, Guitar Hero won last year with some awards.
But but this is ripping off Guitar Hero and Karaoke Revolution.
It does it all at once. It has online play.
I agree with you.
It's interesting.
I agree with you. It wasn't innovative. I mean, are they going to call it innovative when they add a keyboard next year?
Yeah.
Hey, PopCap won the Innovation Award like 5 years ago. I'm still upset about that.
On the even broader scene, as we enter the throes of primaries and an election year, the Parents Television Council has now jumped into the fray and blasted the ESA for forming a political action committee. In a press release, the Parents Television Council has warned politicians thusly. Let me be clear of our intentions. Any public servant who cashes a check from the video game industry will be exposed by the PTC as taking a stand against families, and his or her actions will be communicated to constituents in his or her congressional districts.
This is the most ridiculous thing.
Mr. Winter, we would like to invite you to explain how exactly they are taking a stand against families by accepting a check from the ESA and not when they accept a check from any other media outlet or perhaps, I don't know, casino gaming?
Other lobbyists?
Other lobbyists?
The NRA?
The PTC is anti-media in general.
They are. Well, okay, so he would say that they blasted all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I have no problem with that. I mean, there's definitely too much money flowing around in Washington, but it's very good for us to have a PAC out there. It's sad to see these sort of knee-jerk reactions. The rest of his quote, you should go, if you want to go and read it, it's at gamepolitics.com, which is a very good blog on this kind of stuff. The guy is just Oh my God, he's just out there.
Yeah.
He's just completely out there. He doesn't even. He's one of those group that just completely dismisses the ESRB and doesn't put any weight whatsoever in parenting.
Like between him,
obviously parents can't read ESRB.
Between him and Fox News, it's been a great week.
Well, you know that's next, right? So our friend Jeff Keighley was on Fox News and was set up apparently much like John was when he went on the Donnie Dutch show.
If you haven't seen this clip, YouTube it. It's worth watching.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
And yet, here's the interesting thing: the only reason that this is news is because Jeff is involved. This wouldn't be news if it was just Fox doing it on its own.
It would be.
I think still
the news isn't Jeff's side of it. It's what Fox said about
Mass. The fact that Jeff entered into this discussion with knowledge about the product, which they don't expect, which you're not supposed to have in these talking head like nonsense on Fox News, like they thought they knew what they were talking about, and they didn't want to listen to him who actually knew what he was talking about. They just dismissed everything he said. It was embarrassing.
Well, it's really funny. I mean, the screen cap that is on Game Politics says it all. This is what they wanted to throw up on the screen. So this happened on the Fox News show. Live, what's it called? Live something anyway.
Live with some person.
Right. So the box out at the bottom, sex box, new video game features full digital character nudity, which of course is everyone knows if you play Mass Effect is completely erroneous in the first place.
I gotta say, we gave them shit for not like understanding our thing. We don't even know what their show is called.
Well, I know that they misrepresented this whole thing. I don't need to know nothing about it.
We'll just call them Fox News. That's fine.
All right.
Throw that blanket.
It's called the network's Live Desk program on the Fox News Report. It's hosted by Martha McCallum, and she had a debate with talk show host author Cooper Lawrence. Better? Happy?
Thank you.
Cooper Lawrence, she's amazing.
So anyway, they go through this whole thing, and they talk about how there's full digital nudity, there's going to be ability for players to engage in graphic sex, and the person who plays the game gets to decide exactly what's going on to happen. And Keighley listens to the whole thing, and finally he's like, have you played the game? And they laugh.
No, she's like, no, of course not. Yeah.
She's like, oh.
You're such a great expert to have talk about this subject, aren't you, Cooper?
And from there, it descends into like this incredibly condescending deal where she's like calling him darling and just dismissing everything he said. It's absurdly bad.
Yeah.
And the other one's like, let me add him, Martha. This is so stupid. And they also go on to compare the game to who can argue possibly that Luke Skywalker meets Debbie Does Dallas is a good thing. Wait, did you just describe Mass Effect as Luke Skywalker meets Debbie Does Dallas?
Imagine if we wrote a preview of Mass Effect, and that's our
that would be a great
headline.
deck.
It just goes Skywalker meets Debbie Does Dallas.
It just goes to show you the barrier that we still face with the mainstream media understanding video games.
But I got to say, Jeff did a really good job. I think for what limited airtime they gave him, and they cut him off a lot. I think what little he got to say, he
absolutely.
Did a good job.
And he's a sharp. He threw them off, so you could tell he really threw them off.
Yeah. Well, and I'm very proud of EA BioWare Pandemic for coming out, like against it. Which
and I'm even more proud of well, if you're going there, set it up, I guess.
Okay, so let me set this up. This is off of Kotaku, and this is actually one of the great things. Well, not great things, but one of the good sides of having a company the size of EA backing your game. They immediately swung into action. Jeff Brown, EA's Vice President of Communication, has asked the producer of Live Desk with Martha McCallum to clarify serious errors the channel made in their Mass Effect story. And he details them, lays it straight out for her, like, hey, you said it shows full digital nudity and sex. It doesn't. You said you'll see them engage in graphic sex. It's not graphics. And then talks about the critics saying Mass Effect's being marketed to kids and teenagers. So what were you going to say, Matt?
Well, you threw me off a little bit, but the way the EA thing was worded was a little too argumentative for my taste. It would have been better if it just like actually laid out the facts and wasn't like,
Yeah, he seemed a bit angry.
Right,
yeah.
but I like
rightly so.
But I liked
it.
This is a mandate from Riccatello telling them to go after these people in like multiple situations. That's what like Kotaku was pointing out.
Well, I mean, this is a game.
Cool.
This is a game that sold 1 million copies. If there was a CD that sold 1 million copies or a movie that's making hundreds of millions of dollars, fuck yeah, people would be defending their product. And like if Fox News is just like spreading lies about it,
it's good to see EA doing this because a lot of other companies can't. Like they don't really have the ability to do this. So it's cool that EA is actually going after.
And he had their back. I mean, it does actually wrap up with a couple paragraphs where it says something along the lines of the resulting coverage was insulting to the men and women who spent years creating a game which is acclaimed by critics for its high creative standards. So this goes to the other question: is when is this stuff going to stop? What's going to stop? When the generation changes and moves forward. Last but not least, Shane, you looking forward to the white PS3?
I'm kind of bummed because I would have bought one.
Really?
For my sister had it been out of Christmas. I wouldn't have bought one myself.
You bought your sister a PS3 at Christmas?
She asked for it. But it's only a 20 gig, and I don't want 20 gig.
That's expensive.
I thought it was going to be a 40 gig.
I thought it was a 40 gig.
It's a 40 gig model. It's the 40 gig model.
That's what I meant.
And this is part of in order to sell an electronic device with a radio in it in America, you have to file FCC papers to get it certified. So apparently they filed papers to at least make it possible to sell a white unit in America. Does anyone care?
I'm all for it because it's just like you don't buy a black car because it gets dirty so easily. That PS3 looks...
It is a dust magnet.
Yeah. So the white PS3 means I'm going to have to dust like 1/3 of as much as I do now.
Are you kidding me? You still better be dusting the thing. Otherwise, it's going to have all those dust bunnies inside the thing glumming it up.
I don't actually dust at all, but it's just like it's a nice looking machine, like just like a black car. Nice looking when it comes out of the car wash, but then in 2 days, ugh.
I don't care what color the case is. They need to get their hard drive situation. Like, stop offering all these different SKUs.
Yes.
Oh, they are. I didn't hear 80 gigs discontinued now.
That is a rumor. Like, Best Buy doesn't have them anymore, right?
That's what they're saying.
So take care of that. Stop messing around with backwards compatibility.
Yeah, it is kind of confusing. I can't keep track of it all.
It's silly. It's the same complaint we had about Xbox 360, and they went right down the same road. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Anyway, so there you go, folks. That's the news. That's the big show weekend confirmed for you. Boards.oneup.com is where you can keep in touch with us. I'll be looking for some response. What did I ask him for response on, Andrew?
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Everything. Oh, places that haven't been used in video games enough that you should. So someone Vudrix will start a thread about that or something. There you go. Until next week, I'm Garnet for Shu, Shane, and Matt. Thanks for listening, and for Andrew, of course. Apologies.
And Brian.
And Brian. Yeah, we're thinking about you, bro.
Yep.
That's all. We'll see you next week.